Hello, everyone. My name is Katie, and I'm an Environment Program Officer in the Climate Emergency Department, the City of Darebin. I'd like to start out this evening by acknowledging the traditional owners and the custodians on the lands in which we all are meeting. For me, that's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I'd like to repay our respects to Indigenous elders and past and present. I'd like to recognize the continuation of cultural, spiritual, and educational practices of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And I would like to also acknowledge that sovereignty has never been ceded. So tonight, I'm going to be your MC for the evening. I'm just going to start out with a few little housekeeping items. The webinar that we're participating in today is going to be recorded and will be posted on the websites of the four councils that are hosting tonight. As everybody is pretty familiar with Zoom at this point, we've got a chat function on the bottom of the left hand of your screen that you can use to chat with the participants. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A function on the bottom right hand of your screen. Just click on it and then ask your question. And when we get to the Q&A portion of the evening, we will, I will be asking the questions of our expert, Andrew. And if you have any technical issues that you would like to discuss with our Dave, our technical provider tonight, raise your hand in the middle of the bottom to indicate that you would like tech support, and he'll give you a help out. So to introduce the event, more and more people are choosing to power their homes with renewables. And now with affordable solar systems and the improved efficiency of electrical appliances, an all-electric home often will have lower energy bills than homes that are using gas, along with improved comfort and safety. Not only do all-electric homes save money, they can remove the health risks from indoor gas cooking, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and save you money. So tonight, we have a webinar with our good friends from Renew, who is a national not-for-profit organization that inspires, enables, and advocates for people to live sustainably. This event is brought to you by the cities of Banyule, Darebin, Maribeck, and Yarra, and all of the four councils, along with a number of councils across Australia, have recently launched electrification campaigns. So we banded together to bring you this webinar to help you on your journey. So I'd like to introduce now Andrew Redaway. Andrew is an energy analyst who's been involved with Renew for over 10 years. He's helped provide countless of households with independent energy advice. He's also worked for the Australian Energy Market Operator, the Australian Energy Foundation, and NHAR. He's trained in solar installations and is a certified passive house designer. So Andrew, if I can get you to join us now and take it away.
All right, thanks for the kind introduction, Katie. So I'll just share my screen, bring up the presentation. Okay, so what we'll be going through tonight, an overview to start with, and then get into the details of the cost differences between efficient electric appliances and all electric homes and dual fuel homes and gas, emissions, look at appliances, the steps you might go through to move towards all electric, and other options and considerations. So first, I'd like to take you on a journey back into the midst of time, back to the heyday of the fossil fuel age. Back in the years when the color saffron was what everyone wore, apparently, and even had on their cushions and other home furnishings. This was about the world that my parents lived in when I came into the world, and it was quite different. At some points in the 70s, Australia actually exported oil, which is pretty amazing now that we import about 90% of our oil, and mostly already refined. We don't even have much refining anymore in Australia compared to what we used to. So the appliances people used were pretty different. So electricity was pushed as a relatively clean option for people to use at home, compared to the older options you can see on the screen there. So this little gold medallion, if you had if you built a new home as all electric back in the 1970s, you could get one of these medallions up near your front door and be very proud. So the idea of an all electric home actually goes back a long way. So the next big change to hit the Australian energy landscape was natural gas, which is actually a fossil fuel, and it's mostly methane. And this came as a byproduct from the oil that was being pumped out of Bass Strait. And initially it was just burned off. It was just flared, and because there was no market for it. So pipelines were built to take this excess gas out to Melbourne and Geelong and other cities, and it was cheap. It was a byproduct. So everyone installed appliances for gas cooking, gas heating. So that's what we're seeing on this slide here, by the way. So the top right image is an outdoor gas central heating unit, pretty common around Melbourne, down the sides of homes. So you've got gas coming in, it burns, you've got an electric fan blowing hot air through ducts, which are these silver things down in the bottom image. And your hot air comes up your vents through the floor, or in some cases it's going through the ceiling and the hot air is coming down. So that's ducted gas central heating, which uses a lot of gas. And gas hot water is the other one. So again, often down the side of the house, you'll see a hot water tank like this, which has a gas flame at the bottom. So it's just heating up the water in the tank directly. Okay, so the image on this slide, bottom left, is one of the oil and gas rigs out in Bass Strait. So it's got a pipe drilling straight down through the water, through the seabed, down into the rock, and extracting the fossil fuels, which is where our gas comes from at the moment. However, yeah, those wells are drying up. So yeah, as I mentioned, Australia now imports almost all of its petrol, and we're also the gas is now running out as well. So last winter, I think most of us are aware, there was a big energy shock in Australia with prices going up for electricity and gas for households and businesses. The reason that was most talked about in the media was geopolitical, so the war in Ukraine, all those sorts of factors. But an underlying factor is actually that the gas being produced in Southeast Australia is depleting, and there's not so much available anymore. Also, we're exporting lots of gas, which is mostly from Queensland and New South Wales, which is not so easy to get down to Victoria at times of, when it's a really cold winter's day and heaps of gas is required. It's hard to suck that through the pipelines fast enough and down from the northern states. So in Melbourne, the energy use in a household, this is just a really rough figure. Like every household is different. I'm always surprised by the diversity of energy appliances. I've spoken to households that have kilns in the back of their garden to fire pottery for their hobby or their business. There are households that run, amazing IT setups with servers all over the place. Yeah, there's a lot of diversity. But as a general rule, Melburnians would spend a lot of their energy for heating the home and cooling, not so much, but mostly heating. And yeah, also a reasonable proportion for heating their hot water for showers. All right, so let's look at cost. So all electric homes compared to homes that use electricity and gas. So what we call a dual fuel home. So yes, if you're choosing to go all electric, then your efficient electric appliances, they probably do cost a bit more to purchase and set up. But once they're there, then the energy bills go down compared to a household that is using gas for heating and cooking and hot water. So over time, it generally is an economic choice to be all electric rather than dual fuel. And it's not just because of the energy that's coming in through your electric cables and your gas pipes. It's also the supply charges. So even if you don't use any electricity, you still pay a supply charge on just to have that grid connection. And the same with gas. And so if you look at that option of severing that gas connection, that could actually save you a few $1,000s over 10 years, just for the right of having that connection, which is pretty significant. So Renew put together a report in 2018, which went into a lot of detail on this. Okay, so sometimes people are a little confused by this. They say, but hang on, a unit of gas is only 3.4 cents and a unit of electricity is 23 cents. So how is it possible that you're saying that, you know, it's cheaper to run an electric heating rather than gas heating? That's a good point, and there's a few factors. So the first one is gas is not measured in the same units as what electricity is. So gas is in megajoules, electricity is in kilowatt hours. And a kilowatt hour is bigger than a megajoule. So it's 3.6 times as big. So once you allow for that factor and you do an apples for apples comparison, then we get the second chart on this page, which shows, well, okay, so now gas, if we do it per kilowatt hour of energy, so gas is 12.3 cents, electricity is 23 cents. Okay, so yeah, electricity still looks more expensive. So let's go to the next slide. Yeah, here we are. So the previous slide was only looking at per unit of energy coming in through your meter, but that's not what you really care about. What you really care about is how much heat gets into your home, like either as hot water or as space heating. So this is where the big differences come. So if you're burning gas, then not all of the heat in that gas makes it into your home. You're always going to lose some heat that goes up the flue, or, you know, it gets lost into the air down the side of your house. On the other hand, with electricity, you don't lose energy. In fact, you gain a lot of energy, and I'll explain why later. But you're effectively like 450% efficient with a reverse cycle air conditioner or a heat pump hot water system. You know, it varies unit to unit, but roughly you're getting much more than 100% efficiency. I know it sounds like you're violating the laws of physics and thermodynamics, but yeah, it does actually work. I'll explain why later. So once you take that into account, we get the pictures on this slide here, where the cost per unit of gas energy is actually way more than the cost per unit of electric energy delivered into your home. And that can lead to some pretty good bill savings. So this slide comes from a 2022 Renew analysis and report. So if we just look at the left two columns, so the dark blue and the aqua, is that aqua? Light blue maybe. So yeah, so a basic gas home, you're spending, you know, $2,800 per year. All electric, you're looking at $1,700, and that's in 2022. So you're saving probably around $1,000 per year off your energy bills. Now, this is just, you know, a sample home. As I said, all homes are different. Some would save more, some would save less, but just to give you an idea. And I think we're all aware that energy prices are rising, unfortunately. So these are some projections. So for 2024, yes, gas is going to be more expensive. Electricity is also going to be more expensive, but you're still going to be saving with an all electric home compared to dual fuel. And in fact, your savings get bigger as those as both of those costs increase proportionally. All right, now let's look at emissions. So this slide here is from a 2019 report, the fuel choice report I mentioned previously. So the chart is showing gas in blue, electricity in red, and it's the rough emissions, annual emissions. And it's showing that, so gas, like a dual fuel home would, in Melbourne, it would be a slightly more than all electric home using efficient electric appliances. So yeah, in 2019, using those numbers, yeah, you were going to save on emissions when you're if you're going for all electric rather than dual fuel. Well, that's 2019, which is already 4 years old. And if you're installing an appliance now, that appliance is probably going to be there for 10, 15 years. So if you think about the lifespan of that appliance, what matters in terms of emissions is not just the picture now, but the picture throughout that lifespan. And things are changing. So gas is actually getting dirtier. So previously we were sucking up gas out of a, you know, a sort of a relatively small number of wells that were being drilled down into the seabed under Bass Strait. Now we're moving to unconventional projects. So that's coal seams and fracking. And we're talking much larger numbers of wells throughout, yeah, all sorts of landscapes up in Queensland and in New South Wales. Comes with a whole bunch of environmental issues. Yeah, so gas is actually, as time goes on, the emissions are going up per unit of energy from gas. And electricity is getting cleaner. So we've had Hazelwood Power Station closed down. We've had Liddell in New South Wales shut down just a couple of weeks ago. Eraring's going to close in a couple of years. There's been others that have shut down. So that energy is being replaced by wind, solar, energy storage. If you install a electric appliance now, each year that it's operating, it's actually going to be running cleaner and cleaner in terms of emissions from the electricity that it uses. So if you compare 2030 projections compared to 2019, yeah, electricity from the grid is only going to be a little over a third of the emissions of what it was in 2019. All right, let's look at the appliances themselves. So here's just a quick general overview. So if we go back to 1960, we're talking simple resistive electric elements. So you've just got a wire with electricity going through it, which makes the wire heat up. So like a toaster, basically. 1990, in the middle of the sort of gas age of Victoria, we had gas for space heating and hot water and cooking. Again, pretty simple. You're just burning gas. And nowadays, what are the efficient options now? So we've got induction cooktops, and we've got heat pump technology for hot water and for space heating, just via a reverse cycle air conditioner. So heat pump, that's a bit of jargon. So what is it? Well, it's really this unit you've seen down the side of people's houses. Everything's down the side of the house, isn't it? So it's a heat pump unit. It's the outdoor part of a split system air conditioner. And if you're using it for heating, which you can, it's using electricity, but the electricity, all it's doing is it's turning the machinery. You're not running that electricity and just burning it as heat. It's just spinning the equipment. So what the equipment does is it's sucking in air that's, you know, blowing around down the side of your house. It's extracting heat from that air, and and putting that heat into your air conditioner, so you can get heat into your home. So that's the opposite of what your fridge does. So if you think about your fridge, freezer in your kitchen, that's taking in air from the kitchen, and it's it's taking in air from inside the fridge freezer. It's extracting heat and blowing that out into the kitchen. So if you feel down the back of your fridge, you'll find that it's warm. That's the heat that's been taken out of the fridge freezer to keep your food cold. So it's a heat pump used for heating your house is doing the same thing, but in reverse. Okay, heat pump hot water. So that's using the same technology, same system, but instead of blowing hot air into your house, it's putting heat into this water tank here. So you're storing 200 liters, 300 liters of hot water. There are two types. There's like a split heat pump or an integrated. So the split heat pump has the unit that you've seen before. So just like a reverse cycle aircon unit that sits beside the water tank, or integrated, it has that built into the top of the tank. So yeah, heat pump hot water, we'd recommend that's probably the default choice for most homes now, if they're looking for a hot water system. And there's some tips there. CO2, carbon dioxide. So that's probably the best models use that as the working fluid to transfer the heat from the heat pump into your water. And a coefficient of performance is just the efficiency. So if you see a coefficient of performance of 5, then that's the same as saying it's 500% efficient. Reverse cycle air conditioners, sizing, how many units do you need? Well, yeah, there's a point here saying that if you have a very well insulated house, then you may not need a aircon if you have an air conditioner in one room, then it might actually spread that heat through a couple of rooms in the house. To be honest, your house would have to be really well insulated to achieve that. If you've got an older house or a house that's fairly standard sort of house, then you probably would need to have heating in most rooms that you want heating in. So a split system air conditioner, you've got the inside unit and the outside unit, and you don't have ducts. You don't have air blowing through ducts. The heat's just being transferred through a thin pipe that goes through the wall, which is a much better way of doing it, because when you're blowing air down a duct, it takes a fair bit of electricity to run the fan to push it through, and you always have some losses. You have some air, you have some leaks and gaps in the ducts. Especially if you've got an old unit from the 1980s or something that's still installed, you probably find that the ducts are sort of deteriorating, and you've got hot air blowing out in winter, cold air blowing out in summer. So you're actually trying to heat or cool the whole neighborhood as well as just your own house, which is a pretty tough ask. So there's a bunch of reasons why ducted systems do lose some efficiency compared to like just a straight split system. There are multi-splits, so one outdoor unit with pipes connecting to multiple indoor units. So that can be a good choice if you're trying to install heating and cooling in several rooms all at once. And then induction cooking. So these are really good systems compared to the old style electric ones. So they're really responsive. You can go from low power up to high power in a second. You've got really good control over the power, and it's actually heating the pot itself. So it's not really heating the cooktop. the cooktop only gets warm where the pot is sitting because it's only being warmed up by the pot. So safety is good, which can be important if you've got perhaps elderly people or kids that might be using the cooking. Induction cooktop is powerful, and yeah, you don't have indoor air pollution. There's been some studies recently that have linked indoor gas cooking with childhood asthma, which is pretty concerning. You do have to make sure that your pots are compatible. So the easy way to do that is to stick a fridge magnet on the base of your pot, and if it sticks and doesn't slide off, then yeah, your pot's going to work with induction. Another consideration is you are going to have a dedicated new cable, electrical cable, connecting your induction cooktop back to your electrical switchboard. So that is going to require an electrician to do a bit of work. All right, so that's a rundown on the appliances that we'd recommend for efficient electric to replace gas options. So now let's talk about how do you actually do it. Well, just as a bit of an intro, there are some government rebates and incentives to help people to get off gas and go efficient electric instead. So in heating, there's a program in Victoria called the Energy Upgrades Program. So if you're replacing an old like a gas heater or an old resistive electric heater, then you can get some assistance with that from between $150 up to $1,300. With hot water, there's a rebate for heat pump hot water, and it also applies to solar thermal hot water systems as well, which I'll talk about later on. So they can give you $1,000 as a assistance to install one of these more efficient electric heaters. So if you're thinking about making the change, probably this is one of the main points that we'd like to get through in this presentation, is you don't have to think that you have to do everything immediately. You might get overwhelmed if you're thinking, oh, I have to replace the hot water system and I've got my, my ducted gas heating and there's the cooktop. Oh, it's all just too much to think about. Probably a better way to look at this is just to say, well, how old are your existing appliances? Okay, maybe your hot water system, oh, well, it's at least 10 years old, it could be 20 years old, who knows? All right, well, the idea there is to at least have a plan. So there is probably going to come a time when you turn on the shower and the water's cold. So you go out the side of your house and you see that there's hot water leaking out of your tank. And so that's not the time to start thinking about what type of heat pump you'd like to install. Because what you'll probably end up doing is just taking whatever the plumber has on the back of their truck. So it's better to just think about, have a bit of a plan. Yes, heat pump hot water system, is that the right choice for me? Okay. What type of model would I go for? Where might I be able to find one? So that when your hot water system does die, then you can get onto that quickly and actually get the unit that you want, rather than the unit that the plumber is used to installing and finds easy to install. And the same thing goes for your gas heating. So yeah, how is it really old? Is it fairly new? So just think about, like, when might you need to spend money anyway to replace your old heating system. So if you're going to have to spend money anyway, then paying for paying for new air conditioners, for example, reverse cycle air conditioners for heating and cooling, the only real expense of going efficient all electric is just that cost difference between what you would have had to pay for a like for like replacement of your gas heating and what you have to pay for your efficient electric. So that cost difference, it may not take too many years to recoup that cost through lower energy bills. Now, if we're looking at the cooktop, yeah, cooking doesn't actually use that much gas compared to hot water and heating. So you might think it doesn't really matter that much. I'll just leave the cooktop there. But the issue there is your daily supply charge, because if you're paying about $1 a day just to have the gas connected, then if you're only using that for cooking, then that ends up being fairly expensive cooking that you're doing. That gas is pretty expensive once you factor in that supply charge as well. So if that's all you've got, then it probably makes economic sense to replace it. I mean, even if it's not that old, if you're going to be staying in the house for a while, then the cost of putting in a induction cooktop, yeah, it'll be recouped just by that daily supply charge. Okay, so a couple of things to check is your electric capacity of your house. So even though these appliances are efficient, they still do use electricity. So you can imagine if it's like winter, everyone's coming home at say 7 o'clock at night, they're turning on the induction cooktop and the oven and the air conditioners for heating and the TVs and all the gadgets. Then so if you add up all of those appliances and how much power they're drawing at the same time, so the question is, how close is that going to come to reaching the power limit of your electricity supply coming into your house and your switchboard? So if you do need to get an electrician out for something, then ask them to have a look at this as well and say, well, I'm thinking about installing these other appliances in the future. Like, is my board going to need upgrading? Is my switchboard, my power board, going to need replacing with a bigger one, perhaps? Circuit breakers, so those little switches on your switchboard, so they're normally up, and then if you overload the power, it goes down. You have to come back and push it back up again. So that's a circuit breaker. And if you don't have space to install any others, then yeah, that probably does mean you'll need to upgrade your switchboard to a larger one if you're going to install air cons and induction cooktops and heat pump hot water. And another consideration is locations for appliances. So this is especially important for houses that have a instantaneous gas hot water system. So the hot water units I've showed pictures of so far, they've got a water tank, right? It's storing 200, 300 liters of hot water. But there's a lot of houses that don't have that tank. They've just got like a slim unit, like just up on the wall, external wall, which has water pipes going through it and gas pipes as well. So cold water goes in, gas gets burned, and it heats up the water as it goes through, and then it comes out hot. So it's instantaneous. It's not storing hot water. It's just when you turn on the shower, the water gets heated up just in time. So one of the good things about those units is how slim and small they are. So you might have a home which has space for one of those, but it's going to be tight. It's going to be hard to fit a hot water tank, which comes with a heat pump hot water system. So that's something to think about, and also external units for your air conditioners. So split system, you got your internal unit high up on the wall, your external unit. So they can go down at ground level. They can be mounted up on a wall. A good installer can get creative. It's possible to put them up on a flat roof. If you've got space like under a deck or under a house, then it's possible to put them there as well. So yeah, just start having a think about these considerations and what are the practicalities of going all electric. Okay, so here's a good home activity for everyone to get involved in, especially now that the weather's getting colder. So most homes do have one split system air conditioner at least, often in the living room. So maybe you've never used it for heating, but that's something that you could try out. So when you've got, say, an evening when you don't, let's say you've got gas ducted heating as well, but you've got an evening where you don't need to heat the whole house. All you need to heat is just the living room, the open plan living area. So if that's the case, then you can turn off your gas ducted heating and turn on your air conditioner in heating mode. So you need to find the heat button or the heat option on your remote control. So if you do that at times when it's suitable, then you could do that for a couple of months, for example, and see what the impact is on your next gas bill and your next electricity bill, and compare it to a similar time like a year previous. And you'll probably find that yes, your electricity bill does go up because you are using electricity for running that heating, but your gas bill should be lower than what it was last year, and your overall position, you should be saving money. Now, the provisos on that is if you got one of those ancient air conditioners, which is just like a square unit that goes straight through a hole in the wall, yeah, probably not. They're nowhere near as efficient as the modern ones. But yeah, otherwise, I'd say give it a go. Now, if you're building a new home or doing a major renovation, then really it's a no-brainer. Just don't put gas in. Just go all electric. And while you're doing it, make sure the insulation is good and the draft ceiling. So yeah, there's any new home has got a star rating on it. Up till recently, it's the maximum's always been, sorry, up to recently, the legal minimum has been 6-star rating. That's going to change. The minimum is going to be 7 stars. That's as designed, by the way. If the builders cut some corners, or the tradie subcontractors, cut some corners and they don't put in the insulation as well as they should have, that sort of thing, then even though it's designed for 7 stars, it may only perform as 6 stars or 5.5 stars or something. But yeah, if you're building new, try and get it well sealed, well insulated, and go all electric. So Renew's done some research on this and compared what might be the costs of adding that insulation and going for, say, 8 stars, for example, compared to the extra bill savings over time. And it looks like, yeah, 7 to 8 stars is, if you're just looking at economics, cold hard numbers for dollars, then that might be the sweet spot. You're accepting a bit of extra cost up front, and you're recouping that cost and earning returns through lower energy bills into the future. Now, if you're not just looking at things like an accountant, if you're also considering the environment, air quality, you might even go for more. So an example I'd suggest looking at would be the passive house standard. That's like the German building standard. which seals up really well, and it has controlled ventilation systems. So you get really good energy efficiency, plus you get good ventilation. So you're protected against things like COVID, bushfire smoke, allergies, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you can, if you're building new, then you've got lots of opportunities to do it really well. Solar panels, really popular these days. Solar panels are so hot right now. And yes, they're great by themselves. They also enhance the benefits of getting off gas. So going off gas is great by itself as well, but when you combine them both together, you get sort of even better effects. So you can go into this in heaps of detail, and we have entire webinars, focusing on solar and home batteries. But the simple message is, as long as you've got a sunny roof and you're going to be staying in the home sort of long term, then yeah, it's a good deal economically and environmentally to put solar panels on the roof. Once you do that, then you're generating your own electricity, especially in the sunny part of the day, say 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So that's when you would want to run your appliances as much as you can. Use your electricity. Batteries, they have some benefits, but we'd probably still see them as a niche market at this stage. Still not, economically compelling for most households. Now, if we look at the economics again and look at combinations of going all electric and putting on solar as well, so solar electricity. So the source for this one comes from the Victorian Government Gas Substitution Roadmap, which came out a year or two ago. And so if you've got a dual fuel home, which uses gas for heating, cooking and hot water, then you're looking at bills up at this level of the first bar. Now, if we go all electric, then you can get down to the second and third bar. And then if you put solar on as well, solar electricity panels on the roof, then you can get down to the final bar. So you can see that massive difference from, dual fuel without solar down to all electric with solar. So yeah, it makes a big difference. Now, here's something to aspire to, closing your gas account. So once you've upgraded your appliances from gas ones to efficient electric, then it's time to call up your retailer that sends your gas bill and ask them to close your account. Now, there's very different sorts of reports that we hear, experiences from different households. Some households, like my own, for example, we just called them up and said, "Oh, I would like to close the account." They said, "Yep, fine, close the account," and that was all that had to be done. But there have been other cases, depending on the retailer that they're with and which location they're in, which company owns the gas pipes. Sometimes they are a bit difficult, and they say, "Oh, if you want to close gas, then you actually have to pay us to abolish your gas connection, and we have to dig up the pipes and remove them all." And there have been cases where it can all get a bit tricky. So we'd recommend pushing back on that if they're trying to make you pay for getting off gas. And if necessary, I'd suggest getting in contact with the Energy and Water Ombudsman in Victoria. Raise a case with them and escalate it if necessary. If you feel like you're not being treated properly by the companies. So all electric or all electric. So here we're talking about getting off petrol as well. So electric vehicles, yes, their prices are coming down, but they're still more expensive than an equivalent petrol car, but the running costs are a lot cheaper. And if you really want low cost transportation, then I'd suggest to have a look at electric bicycles as well. So there's a Victorian government subsidy, so you can get $3,000 off an electric vehicle while the subsidy lasts. And there's also a benefit that's come in more recently. If you get a vehicle on a novated lease, so through your employer, where you don't have to pay up front, you're just salary sacrificing part of your salary to pay for your car, like effectively a car finance. That's actually a really good deal because there's no fringe benefits tax. So you can pretty much get your car as a tax-free item. All right, so that was explaining the mainstream path to get off gas and go all electric. Now, there are some other options and considerations. I'm not sure how much time I actually have. If I'm running a bit tight, then if one of you guys could let me know. Otherwise, I'll just keep pressing ahead with this. And we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. So some alternatives from the mainstream. And another way that you can get hot water and still get off gas is to go for an electric resistive hot water system. So this is an old style electric hot water tank. So you got your tank, 200, 300 liters down the side of your house, but you'll notice it doesn't have that fan unit anywhere, not at the top, not beside it, because it's just got a element in it, like your toaster, basically, or your kettle, actually, in your kitchen, your electric kettle. That's all it is. So cheap to buy, reliable. There's not much to go wrong. The downside is that when it's running, it's going to use probably about 4 times as much electricity, or maybe 5 times as much as a heat pump hot water system. So usually the only way this might make sense is if you've got a big solar system to produce the electricity that it's going to use. So if you've maybe got more than 20 solar panels, then this could be an option. And if you're thinking of having solar electricity installed, then you might upsize your solar system if you've got the roof space to provide the electricity for your hot water as well as everything else. So it's like a brute force approach, not very efficient, but if you can generate enough electricity, then it can kind of work out. So you'd run it on a timer around midday when your solar system's putting out lots of electricity. However, what if it's a cloudy day? If the clouds come over in the middle of the day, then your solar panels, even though you've got a lot of them, and you might be running other appliances at home using that. So you might end up sometimes running your hot water tank off the grid, which is not so cheap. So there are some gadgets to make it match up. So your tank will only run at a lower power level when it needs to. So yeah, that's one alternative that is valid in many cases. Another way to get hot water is the old school solar thermal hot water system. So you've got either a flat plate or evacuated tubes up on your roof, and you got the heat from the sun heating it up, just like if you've got a black car bonnet on a hot day, that heats up. So you've got water running through that. You can either have the tank up on your roof, or you can have the tank down at ground level. If it's at ground level, you need a pump to circulate the water through, so it goes up cold and it comes down hot. Yep, this is also a valid option. However, it's losing market share. It's not as popular as it used to be. The main reason why most of these units are still being installed is because of an old legacy requirement in the building regulations that kind of sort of, not quite, but sort of forces people to install a solar thermal hot water system on a new house if they don't have a rainwater tank. Yeah, it's all a bit messy. That requirement is going away soon, which is great. But yeah, solar thermal hot water, yes, it's a valid option. In winter, it's probably not, yeah, it's almost definitely not going to produce enough hot water for you to run your showers. So you're going to need an extra heating method as well. So either gas, or you can have a resistive electric element in there. So some of those complexities are the reasons why we would generally recommend a heat pump as the sort of standard alternative, standard option these days. Now for cooling, we've talked about reverse cycle air conditioners, which can do heating and cooling. As a cooling only option, there's evaporative cooling, which has traditionally been a low energy, doesn't use too much electricity to cool your home. So how this works is you've got wet pads that air is forced through with a fan, and the evaporation of the water produces a cooling effect. So to use this, you need to have a lot of airflow going through your house. So you need to have windows open. So it's a bit of a traditional sort of approach, open everything up and have a breeze blowing through to cool it down, enhanced by that evaporation. So it's going to use probably 10 to 20 liters of water an hour evaporating out. So you've got a bit of water consumption, and it relies on evaporation. So if you have one of those humid heat waves, then it's not going to actually work that well. So if you've got 45 degrees humid heat wave, then yeah, these days the general recommendation is to, instead of opening up your house and when you have a really hot humid days, if you've got an air conditioner, like a good modern air conditioner, and you've got insulation, then you're probably better off closing up your house tightly and running the aircon. That's probably going to be more effective. Hydronic heating is a type of heating that's generally a bit of a niche option. It's more of a premium. It's pretty expensive to purchase and the labor to install it as well. Yeah, plumbers aren't cheap, and you need a lot of plumbing work to install one of these systems, because you've got it's got hot water running through your house out to all the heaters, etc. Well, actually, it can be radiant heaters like what we're showing here, or it can also be hot water pipes that run through the floor. So almost all of the hydronic heaters in Melbourne are powered with a gas boiler, so like a big gas hot water system. It is possible to get a heat pump option to heat up the water that goes through your hydronics. It's not so easy to find an installer that does heat pump hydronics, unfortunately. So yeah, that's a valid option, but you may have to invest a bit of time and energy into engaging with and finding some tradespeople who can really do a good job for you. And the efficiency of the heat pump for this option, it's probably not as good as just the efficiency of a standard split system air conditioner. So yeah, if you really don't like the idea of having air moving through your house, maybe you've got really bad allergy issues or something like that, then that's certainly an advantage of hydronics. But if you're looking more at the economics, then yeah, just a standard reverse cycle aircon on the wall, easy to get installed, pretty cost effective, and it does cooling as well as heating. Now, here's a few special cases. So let's say you're a household that, say you're just one person, you've got a low flow shower head, you only have a short shower, like, 4 minutes or something, then the amount of hot water that you use every day is actually going to be really small. So a heat pump hot water system is probably overkill. Like, you got a 150-liter tank of hot water outside, and you're only using a small portion of that each day. So on an economic basis, you might actually be better off with a instantaneous gas hot water, because it's only going to heat up the amount of water that you're using. So yeah, that's one niche case. What about if you don't have room for a heat pump hot water system? That's like, you don't have room for one of these hot water tanks down the side of your house. Then, well, yeah, that could be a niche for a solar thermal hot water system with the water tank up on the roof. Maybe you've got specific cooking requirements. One that often comes up is wok cooking. So there are ways to use woks on induction cooktops. There are some that have like wok provision built into them, and there are wok adapters where you can have like a flat surface on your induction and a curved surface for the wok. I've seen some celebrity chefs. Some say that it's fine for wok cooking induction. Others say, oh yes, still prefer the gas. So yeah, look, it's that can be quite a personal thing. If that's the only thing that you want gas for, then you do have the option of just getting gas bottles, like your barbecue type bottles for to come through to a wok burner in your kitchen, because it's not going to use that much gas actually. So one bottle would last a very long time. And if you're off grid, like maybe you're in some rural location that's far from the poles and wires, then yeah, you've probably got some special requirements there. If you've got lots of firewood available on site, then that might be an option as well. Yeah, that's really a case-by-case basis. Now, another one that we get is, what if there's a blackout, an electricity outage? So trees have fallen down on the power lines, perhaps. No one in your street has power. So isn't that going to be terrible if I'm an all-electric home? Well, yes, that's a case where your hot water and your cooking and your heating may be affected more than if you had gas. But on the other hand, some gas appliances also have an electric component in them, like a ducted gas heating system. It's got that electric fan to blow the hot air down the ducts. So that's going to stop working in your electricity outage as well. With your hot water, if you've got a heat pump hot water with a tank down the side of your house, well, you've got that tank full of hot water that's going to stay warm for a couple of days. So hopefully your electricity outage won't last that long. For cooking, there are workarounds. So barbecues, little camping stoves, that sort of thing. If your outages are only occasional, then that may well be enough to get you by. And there are also backup power options to keep electricity going in your house, even though your street is blacked out. So you've got uninterruptible power supplies that are like office batteries that you can use to keep computers running for a while. You can get petrol and diesel generators to fire up in an emergency situation. Electric vehicles are starting to come in more and more with vehicle to load. So you can actually run an extension lead from your car. So you're using the battery in your car to power appliances. And if you've got a home solar system, then if you add a battery on it, one valid reason why you might want to put a battery on your home solar is for blackout backup purposes. So yeah, there are ways to help you out if you need it. Useful resources. So there's a bunch here. I'm not going to read out every word on this slide. The power saving bonus. I would definitely recommend going onto that website there, compare.energy.vic.gov.au, or just do an internet search on power saving bonus. You might be thinking, oh yeah, I already claimed that. Well, they're giving you another one for the current year. So just go in and just make sure you're not missing out on a free $250. Your home, heaps of info there. And we have this Renew toolkit on getting off gas, which is launching in a couple of months. So that's going to be a website with heaps of resources for all of the topics we're talking about tonight. Okay, so that's the end of the main presentation. I think what we're doing now is launching over to Q&A. Is that right, Katie?
That's right, Andrew.
I hope I didn't go too far over time for my section.
Okay, well, we have lots of questions, so let's just get right to it. I'm inclined to answer or ask Carmelina's question because she asked it before the webinar started. So, and she has a great question that I think a lot of people wonder about, and that is, are there one-stop shops or other types of places that you can go to help you through kind of the myriad of decisions that need to be made when you're going all electric, and who do it fairly and, you know, unbiased, give you unbiased advice on what you need to do to be able to swap over?
Yeah, there are a couple. I'm not sure what the policy is for this webinar about like mentioning specific names and things.
I think you can. I don't know that I can.
All right. Well, okay. One that I might mention as a long-term affiliate of Renew organization would be what's it called? Pure Electric. That's what it's called, right? Yeah. So that's what they're set up to do is as a one-stop shop. So you'll find some details. They advertise in Renew magazine, for example, and there's others out there as well. Another resource I'd probably recommend, well, Renew organization itself, and there's also another one. There's a Facebook group called My Efficient Electric Home. There's also the Whirlpool discussion forums, if you're not on Facebook. So that's a internet discussion group. So if you jump on any of those, you can get recommendations as well.
Sounds great. So we had a few questions also about, you talked a bit about hydronic heating. How about retrofitting an existing hydronic system by using a heat pump?
Yeah, it's usually tricky with a hydronic system. So, you know, it sounds simple. You're just putting hot water down the pipes, right? But what's the temperature of that water? What's the flow rate? Like how many liters per minute? Is it like drinking water, or is it like a closed loop system which has some special chemicals in it to stop the radiators from rusting from the inside? So all those types of questions can, it's the compatibility, like are the pipes and the valves and the radiators, are they going to be compatible from your old gas hydronic system to the to a heat pump unit that gets bolted on and retrofitted? So there are people who've done it. But yeah, you just need to get advice from a tradie and an organization that really knows what they're talking about. Often one of the issues is the temperature. So with a gas hydronic, I think we're talking like 80 degrees or somewhere getting up to that level. So the radiators are sized for pretty hot water that going through them. And most heat pump hot water units, the temperature is not that hot. It's more the 60-degree level that what you normally have for you know, hot water for your showers and things. So if you just swapped it over, then you might not be getting enough heat out of the radiators because the water going through isn't as hot as what it used to be. So yeah, you just have to check all of those types of issues. Yeah.
And Kathleen had a question here that it's kind of near to dear my heart as a non-Australian. Australians like to put their hot water systems outside, but in other places, at least the tank and many other parts of heat pumps are inside. Is this a hangover from the days of gas systems, or is it likely to change?
Yeah.
Or do you have any advice around that?
You must be getting close to being an Australian by now, Katie.
I know, not quite. I got the paperwork.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. The previous unit that I lived in had a gas storage hot water tank in an indoor location. So it has been done. Probably wouldn't comply if it was being installed these days with the current regulations. Yes, if you've got a heat pump hot water which is like the split type, so you got the water tank and then you got the separate like fan unit for the heat pump, then yeah, very possible to have the tank indoors and the fan unit outdoors. So yeah, if you've got a good spot for it, or if you're like planning a new home or something and you can build in a location for the tank indoors, then that can be a great way to make space for it. And yeah, as a side benefit, it's going to run a little more efficiently as well, because it's not going to be yeah, all of these hot water tanks have insulation like in the wall of them, but yeah, you still are going to lose some heat. Like when it's really cold air outside, the heat will slowly leak out over a couple of days. So if you have the tank indoors, then it helps with that one as well.
Thank you. Can you talk about some of the practical considerations with electrifying that are specific to apartments rather than houses that people might find?
Sure. Yeah. Well, probably the first one is the space issue again, because a lot of houses, a lot of apartments, finding space for a heat pump hot water or an outdoor unit of a split system air conditioner, space might be at a premium. So that's one. I haven't got a silver bullet for that, sorry. Although on the other hand, a lot of apartments already have electric hot water with just a fairly small hot water electric hot water tank in a cupboard somewhere, for example. So you may already be partway down the electrification path already. Cooking shouldn't be much of an issue. I mean, it's induction cooktop doesn't take much more space. It's just the electrical supply to your apartment. Depending on where the wiring comes from, then the electrician might have trouble upgrading that if necessary. So yeah, it can be a bit more tricky than a big freestanding house that has more sort of space and freedom of options. Yeah.
So another question is kind of related. How about instantaneous electric systems?
Yes. I did have a slide that sort of warned against that, but didn't really explain why. So I'm kind of not surprised there was a question. Yeah. So instantaneous electric, what that does is, so let's say you turn on your shower. If you have a tank of water outside, that's not instantaneous, right? So you're drawing on that water that's already heated and you're drawing that into your shower, 10 liters a minute or whatever it is. With instantaneous, you have no tank. So you have an electric element like your toaster or your kettle, that's the water's going past that element and being heated up on the way to your shower. So it works. You need a really powerful element. So, and instantaneous electric heater, it's going to use a lot of power just for a short duration. So say 5 minutes while you're having a shower. And so you're condensing all that energy into a short time period. So there's a couple of downsides for that. Firstly, depending on what kind of electricity plan you're on, it's already started in Queensland that some homes are being forced onto a demand tariff. So what that means is they look back on your records for the last three months, for example, and say, oh, what was the time in that last 3 months when you had the highest, power? And if you had, right, okay, so you had a shower and your instantaneous your instantaneous electric heater was going at 15 kilowatts of power for like 5 minutes. Oh, okay, that was your maximum, so we're going to slug you based on that interval, even though it was 2 months ago. So that's one of the issues. If those tariffs come in, then it may end up being quite expensive, just because of those spikes in the electricity power that you're drawing from the grid. The other issue is it doesn't correlate that well with solar, and because if you've got solar on the roof, then that might be generating at, I don't know, 3 kilowatts, 5 kilowatts of power for 5 hours, 8 hours. So you got this nice sort of gradual power output from your solar, and then in the middle of that, you got this big spike. So you're going to be exporting electricity like most of the time, and then you're suddenly going to be importing from the grid while you have a shower. So yeah, it's, in terms of working together with solar, it's better to have that tank, so you can be gradually filling up that tank, and it matches up nicely with your solar, like over 3 hours or 5 hours.
Somebody also, Pascal mentions maybe there are new heat pump technologies for instantaneous hot water, for electric hot water in Europe. Have you heard about that, and whether they might be coming to Australia?
I've heard something about it, but I haven't caught up on the details, and no, I certainly don't have any word on when they're coming to Australia yet. So if anyone has some latest and greatest info, then yeah, feel free to share in the Q&A or something. And yeah. Yeah.
I have another one from Anna. Is it better to get rid of evaporative cooler and ducting after installing a split system, or is it okay to leave them be?
Okay. Yeah. Well, one of the downsides of ducts, one of the many downsides is, okay, so you got evaporative cooling. Your houses with that, you'll see, like in the ceiling, they have like a vent with the little louver things on it. So that's where the cool air will come out when you have the evaporative cooling turned on. So if you think about, ceilings really should have insulation, like above the plasterboard. And if you've got a duct coming in, then that's a hole in your insulation, right? So it's compromising your ceiling insulation. And it's also a path for air leaks as well. So yeah, if you've got ducts there that aren't being used anymore, then yeah, I would definitely recommend to try and get them removed, and get those holes like made airtight and well insulated.
And there are covers you can put on them if you still have them during the winter, or just
yeah, that's a good point. There are covers which will help with the air tightness. Still might not be perfect. You still might have a bit of air leaking through, but it's not going to do much for the insulation. So yeah, you want some insulation over the top of them, up in your roof cavity.
So here's what I would call a softball question. For homes on a sloping block with original wood floorboards, would you recommend investing in underfloor ceiling where access is easily accessible, or just keep the house warm with a split system?
Underfloor ceiling was the question?
Yeah, I don't know if they mean just ceiling or whether they mean insulating.
Yeah, so You see some houses, and especially they've got old floorboards, and like the timber has shrunk, and you have these big gaps in between the floorboards. That's terrible, especially if it's like a sloping block, as you were describing. You get the cold air just, blowing up through your feet, sort of thing. So yeah, I would definitely try and get the air tightness addressed. So there's various products you can get to, like even these little sort of squishy tube things that you can roll down to fill up any gaps in between your floorboards, in various products. And they can be DIY jobs as well. You don't necessarily have to hire someone to come and do that for you. So that would be the first step, and then the next step, which you may be referring to, is underfloor insulation, where you put some like insulation bats, like soft blankety type material under the floor to help hold the heat in, so you're not losing heat out in winter, or stop block heat from coming in through the floor in summer. So yeah, that's a good idea as well. But usually with insulation, you'd go top down. So you'd make sure your ceiling insulation is good. Then you think about walls and window insulation, and then the floor would be probably the third priority for insulation.
So John here has a stand-up gas stove that's in a space that's 54 centimeters wide, with drawers and cupboards on each side, and hasn't been able to find an induction cooktop that would fit this space. They're all much wider. Do you have any indication of whether there's narrower induction cooktops, or any tips for situations where people don't want to redo their whole kitchen?
Yeah, 54 centimeters is unusual. Like normally they're 60. I'm guessing it's quite old. There's a couple of options. You can get portable induction stoves. They're really cheap. I don't know, $100 or $150. Well, cheap compared to a whole brand new stove. And you just plug them into a normal power point. They only have like one burner on them, but you could have more than one of these.
They have dual burner ones as well.
Oh, dual burner. Yeah. Okay. Yep. So that's one option. Another option, there's actually an article, I think it was the latest edition of Renew magazine, had an example of someone who had this exact problem, and they found a really creative way to leave the gas cooktop where it was, but they removed the metal pieces on top, and had some type of like surface made up that fitted really nicely on top. And yeah, so
I think that may have been me.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, that's mine.
Oh, sorry, Katie, I didn't realize. You can probably describe
it. So you still would have the issue of trying to find something that fits that 54 centimeter. If you've got, limitations on both sides, that still might be a tough one.
Right. Wow. I didn't realize we had the author here. That's awesome.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. And that, I think your idea about getting just using like a cutting board or something and put it on it, and then putting portable inductions on the top is a really great way for anybody, whether you're renting. It's a very accessible way to, in some cases, get rid of your last gas appliance.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see. Can hot water heat pumps be used on electricity from a solar system, so just during the day?
Sorry, what's the question? Hot water heat pump?
Can you, if you have solar, is there a way for heat pumps just to run during the day when solar is producing?
Yeah, well, a heat pump, hot water, because it's so efficient, the amount of electricity power that it draws is not that high. We're talking about 1 kilowatt. So like the standard solar system being installed now is probably 6.6 kilowatts. it'll only generate that much in perfect solar conditions, but yeah, even in sort of moderate solar conditions, around the middle of the day, it would hopefully be generating, say, 2 kilowatts maybe. So that leaves you some kilowatts to use in the house and some to use for your hot water system. So the simple way is just to set your heat pump hot water on a timer. Just say, well, turn on at say 11 a.m. It'll only run as long as it needs to heat up the full quantity of water, and say, well, turn it off at 4 p.m. And generally that would be good enough, I think, if you got a like a decent sized solar system, like 10, 15 panels, that sort of thing. Occasionally you might have a time when it's cloudy and you happen to be running lots of other appliances, and so yeah, some supplemental electricity has to be drawn from the grid to make up what the hot water system's using, your heat pump. But it shouldn't be that common. Like I think that would be a pretty good solution. If you want to get fancy, there are a couple of heat pump hot water systems that like have an inbuilt like method to switch them off from an external signal. So there are some solar systems that can send that signal. So you can set rules and say, oh, okay, if you're exporting less than X kilowatts, then turn off the heat pump hot water system. So yeah, that is possible if you got the one of the fancier brands of heat pump hot water. But generally, for most houses, I just put it on a timer, and most heat pumps have an inbuilt timer anyway. So yeah, it's really pretty simple. You just get the heat pump and you just set the timer for 11 till 3 or 11 till 4, and that's all you need to do.
So we have a couple questions about batteries. There's one question from Fernando is, how long do we need to wait till battery systems would be economical? And then Elizabeth was asking about community batteries for solar instead of having batteries for every household, and the viability of that.
Right. Okay. So the first question's a good one. So when I was working at Renew back in I think it was 2016 or 2015, when the Tesla Powerwall battery like first came out, and it was the first big media sort of awareness about home solar batteries. We did some research. We had a look at all of the analyst projections, the cost curves, and when batteries would be cheaper and when they would become economic. So 2015, we put out a report that said, yeah, we think batteries will be economic by 2020. But
how'd that go?
No, that one didn't come off.
Got to get out of the prognosticating business.
Oh, look, sometimes you're in, sometimes you don't. So yeah, I'm reluctant to put a date on it now. It probably comes down to supply and demand for batteries, and there's going to be enormous demand from electric vehicles and grid scale batteries and everything else. So the other thing is home solar batteries, they're a bit of a niche market, and they're probably, the companies that make them probably see them as a bit of a luxury kind of item. So they're going to take fairly fat margins on them most of the time. So yeah, it's hard to see when they'll really become economic. What I think is going to become more economic is using electric vehicles as a home battery, because battery capacity in an electric vehicle is actually way cheaper than battery capacity as a home solar battery, and you get dual use out of it. You can use it for your transport and save having to burn petrol. And when you're at home, if you choose the right model, then you can put an extension lead from your car and run things off it. And in a couple of years, we should see options to plug your car into your switchboard of your house and start supplementing your house power. So I actually think that's going to become a more compelling proposition than the standard solar battery for most people. I mean, there are reasons why you might want a home solar battery, but for your average home, I think that's probably where it'll go. Now, your other question was the community batteries.
Yes, I am cognizant of time though, so if we can
keep
it short.
Well, it's hard to cover the topic. I mean, we do whole presentations on community batteries.
Yeah. There's a lot of subsidies happening right now, community batteries, that might make them more attractive. I think without the subsidies, it's a difficult economics.
Very good summary. Yeah. We just leave it at that.
There you go. There was one more question. Maybe it's a clarification question. Is the government EV subsidy $3,000 or 2,400 pounds? I don't know why that question is out there. Whether there was something in the slide that was.
I thought we had the dollar sign rather than the pound sign.
Okay. I don't quite understand it, Tony. Sorry.
Okay.
But maybe Andrew, if you could advance the slides, I just wanted to wrap things up, if that's okay. Yeah. So as I had said earlier, the 4 councils that are bringing this presentation to you this evening are part of a bigger movement of many councils across Australia that have launched Go Electric campaigns. They often they involve different steps to going all electric. And just as Andrew said earlier, we really want to stress that the first step is making a plan. You don't want to get into a situation where your hot water heater dies and you don't know the options. It's going to take you a little bit of a while to both research and then find one that's available. And often with the supply chain issues that have been happening throughout the world, it might be a few weeks before you can get the one that you want. So it's really good idea to start making a plan, looking at your finances and doing what you can based on what things cost and when you might have the money. But then the steps are installing solar, switching to efficient electric heating, replacing gas hot water with heat pump systems, upgrading to induction cooking, and then moving to electric transport. Those aren't in any specific order, but those are the steps. Can you advance the slide, Andrew? Maybe. There you go. So all 4 councils have resources available online for you. Here are the URLs based on what council you may be in. There are also a lot of resources available by each of the councils. I think in Darebin, Merrimack, and Yarra, there will be hopefully soon induction cooktops available in the library for you to check out to see what it's like cooking with induction cooktops and check to see if your pans are compatible. Banyule has a full-time energy officer who can answer questions. On their website, you can find a link to the phone number for that, or you can come in for some in-house questions. They also have a Better Score Energy Efficiency Grant, which gives you a scorecard assessment, and then up to $1,000 for upgrades to make your home more efficient or to electrify. In Darebin, we have the Solar Saver program, and depending on a number of different qualifications, you may be eligible to get solar installed and then pay it off over 10 years through your rates and have access to all the other Victorian grants that are available as well. Merrimack has an energy upgrade subsidy for people on low incomes that gives you up to $2,000 toward upgrading your home through insulation and gap sealing. So you'll see that on their website. And then in Yarra, they're going to be very soon trialing a program offering free home electrification assessments, where a qualified assessor will come in and actually make that plan for you to go electric. And then there'll be a no obligation quote as well. So that's the first of our 4 councils that is trialing that. It's very exciting, and they're going to be launching that in the next few months. So please, we've got a number of electrification events that are happening this Saturday at the Preston Market between 11 and 1. There's going to be a pickling demonstration from Open Table on an induction cooktop, so you can see how easy it is to use induction cooktops, and you can also take some pickles home. And then there's a number of other, there's an online induction cooktop course, and then another event that's at the Fitzroy Library. So check out all of our websites to see when those are. And that's it for me. On behalf of the 4 councils, I want to thank Renew for hosting this webinar, and thank Andrew for his time. If you have any questions, please, please reach out to the various councils and check in with us if you have any questions, and good luck on your journey.